Ah, sugar. We all know it, right? It's that sweet fuel our bodies just love, that quick hit of energy we all crave. But when we talk about our brain, the story gets way more complicated. So let's dive right in and really unpack how sugar can reshape your brain, both for better and, well, for worse.
This quote just hits the nail on the head. It perfectly captures that tightrope we're all walking. How do we give our brain the fuel it needs without, accidentally causing some serious damage?
Okay, so here's the plan. We're going to start with what I'm calling the sugar paradox. Basically, why the brain needs it in the first place. Then we'll jump into the blood sugar roller coaster and dopamine's downward spiral. After that, we'll look at the long-term chronic consequences. And don't worry, we'll finish up on a high note by talking about how you can build a more resilient brain. All right, first up, the sugar paradox. And it really does sound like a contradiction, doesn't it? I mean, our brain is an absolute energy hog. It's constantly working, and its number one fuel source? Glucose, which is just a simple sugar. Your brain literally can't function without it. But, and this is a big but, there's a super delicate balance that has to be maintained. And that delicate balance has a name: homeostasis. The best way to think about it is like your body's internal thermostat. It's always working behind the scenes to keep everything just right, nice and stable. We're talking everything: your body temperature, your hormone levels, you name it. And your brain, more than anything else, just loves, it thrives in this super stable environment. So that leads us to the million-dollar question, right? What happens when a huge flood of sugar from our diet comes along and just throws that whole system out of whack? How does it mess with the brain's perfect little ecosystem? Well, let's find out. And that brings us right to what I like to call the blood sugar roller coaster. You've probably felt this before. It's that immediate, really powerful effect you get after eating something super sugary. So here's how it goes down. Step one, you eat that donut, maybe drink that soda. Instantly, your blood sugar just skyrockets. Step two, your pancreas basically panics and goes into overdrive, flooding your system with insulin to try and deal with all that sugar. Now, if this happens just once in a while, okay, but when it happens over and over and over again, your whole system just gets incredibly stressed out. And here's the real cost to your brain. All that constant stress, it starts to mess with something called neuroplasticity. Now, neuroplasticity is, well, it's basically your brain's superpower. It's this incredible ability it has to adapt, to learn, to form new memories, to rewire itself. And this constant roller coaster of sugar spikes and crashes, it makes your brain way less flexible and a lot less efficient at doing its most important jobs. Okay, but that physical roller coaster, that's really only half the story. Now we've got to talk about the chemical roller coaster, what I call dopamine's downward spiral. This part explains why you crave that sweet treat, even when your logical brain is screaming, "Don't do it." See, when you eat something sugary, it floods your brain's reward center with dopamine. That's the famous feel-good chemical, right? It's all about pleasure and motivation. Your brain basically lights up and says, "Whoa, that was amazing. Let's do that again, and soon." But, and you knew there was a but coming, here's the catch. Your brain is smart. It adapts. So that first bite, you get this intense wave of pleasure. But after you do it again and again, your brain starts to dial down the response. It becomes less sensitive. Suddenly, you need more sugar just to get that same feel-good feeling. And when you don't get it, the cravings can become absolutely intense. It's a tricky cycle, and it's the very same mechanism we see in addiction. So, okay, we've talked about the immediate effects, the short-term stuff, but what happens when this cycle repeats itself not just for days or weeks, but for years or even decades? Now we have to look at the really serious long-term consequences for our brains. And honestly, the long-term research it's pretty sobering. A diet that's chronically high in sugar is linked to a whole bunch of problems. We're talking about a general decline in cognitive function, chronic low-grade inflammation throughout the body and brain, and something really scary: insulin resistance inside the brain itself. Okay, so think of it this way. Insulin is like the key that opens up your brain cells to let the glucose, the fuel, inside. But with insulin resistance, it's like the locks on those cells get all gummed up and rusty. The key doesn't work anymore. So even when there's plenty of fuel around, the brain cells are literally starving. And all of this, it weakens the communication between your neurons and, over time, can seriously increase the risk for conditions like dementia. Okay, I know that sounds like a lot of doom and gloom, but it's not. And that brings us to our final and honestly most empowering section: building a resilient brain.
Because the fantastic news is that our choices really, really matter. We can absolutely take concrete steps to protect our brain health. And the contrast is just so clear, isn't it? On one hand, you have the high sugar diet. You're on that roller coaster of energy spikes and crashes, you've got brain fog, and your long-term risk is high. But then you look at a diet based on whole foods. We're talking lean proteins, healthy fats, all those great complex carbs from veggies. What do you get? Stable, sustained energy, mental clarity, and a much, much lower risk for problems down the road. And look, diet is a huge piece of the puzzle, but it's not the only piece. These other habits are like rocket fuel for your brain health. Regular exercise, it boosts blood flow and strengthens the connections in your brain. And getting quality sleep, that's when your brain does all its critical housekeeping, cleaning out waste and locking in memories. You put these three together and you've got a seriously powerful defense system for your brain. So, what's the big takeaway from all this? Look, it's not about demonizing sugar or trying to eliminate it completely. That's not realistic. It's about shifting the balance. The real goal is to create an environment inside your body where your brain can be stable, nourished, and just ready to tackle whatever you throw at it. Because at the end of the day, the power to build a healthier, stronger, more resilient brain, it's in your hands. It really is. And it all starts with the very next choice you make.